John, it's marvelous seeing you again.
Yes, it's nice to see you, Marty.
It seems as if the only time we get a chance to talk with each other is on the radio.
Well, it's a nice situation because no one else seems to be around.
But I think everybody should get equal time to talk with each other on the radio. There's so little talk these days, and, especially with young people, they're very suspicious of it.
What do you mean?
Well, they seem to be fed up with the rhetoric, or what they thought was rhetoric,
yes.
You see.
I heard, too, that people no longer bother saying hello or goodbye, that they just... and perhaps if they don't say hello and goodbye, they don't need to talk in between. Our friendship, for instance, begins with Webern, doesn't it?
Yes.
The circumstance of our meeting begins with our both having walked out of a Philharmonic concert. A Webern piece had just been played, and we shared the desire not to hear anything else afterward because we'd been so deeply moved. You remember that one of those concerts at Town Hall that we, around the late 40s or early 50s, when the painters were still going to the concerts, and when we spoke of the renaissance of new music and so forth, Varese was beginning to be played again. After the concert, I got in the blue ribbon at a table where Bill de Kooning was. And I don't think I heard all of the conversation, but it was clear that they were talking about the way the crumbs had fallen on the tablecloth. And Bill was discussing whether or not this was art. And he was concluding, of course, that it wasn't. But then that was a difference that had already appeared between myself and Bill. I remember his saying once to me, the difference between us is that I want to be a great artist, and you don't.
Was he wrong?
No, I think he's absolutely right.
John, wouldn't you say that what we're dependent on we call reality, and what we don't like we consider an intrusion in our life? Consequently, I feel that what's happening is that we're continually being intruded upon.
That would make us very unhappy.
Or we surrender to it and call it culture.
Call it culture?
Or whatever.
Give me an example. What would be an intrusion on your life, for instance, that you would call culture?
Well, this weekend I was on the beach.
Yes.
And on the beach these days are transistor radios.
Yes.
Blaring out rock and roll.
Yes.
All over.
Yes. And you didn't enjoy it?
Not particularly. I adjusted to it.
How?
By saying that, well, I thought of the sun and the sea as a lesser evil.
Well, you know how I adjusted to that problem of the radio in the environment. Very much as the primitive people adjusted to the animals which frightened them, and which probably, as you say, were intrusions. They drew pictures of them on their caves, and so I simply made a piece using radios. Now, whenever I hear radios, even a single one, not just 12 at a time, as you must have heard on the beach, at least, I think, well, they're just playing my piece.
That might help me next weekend.
Yeah, and I listen to it with pleasure.
I can't conceive of some brat turning on a transistor radio in my face and say, the environment.
But all that radio is, Marty, is making available to your ears what was already in the air and approach and available to your ears, but you couldn't hear it. In other words, all it is making audible something that you're already in. You are bathed in radio waves, TV broadcasts, probably telepathic messages, from other minds deep in thought.
Listening to the radio at the same time.
And this radio simply makes audible something that you thought was inaudible. I think that quality of plasticity was in Feldman, and which made his music listed for people who wanted to
no doubt in sadness at the tragic passage.
thinking about music. It's now I said it myself, and we'll have the place for Feldman in terms of I feel much better about it since our last talk.
It started out with aborting babies by various cruel methods, and now they're not happy for that.
I remember a year ago I had a conversation with Lucas Foss, and he turns to me and he says, "Oh, Morton," he says, "you're the safest of us all." Well, it upset me. It upset me terribly. Why am I so safe now for him?
What did he mean?
He meant that what I'm doing now is absolutely safe. He doesn't see the risk in it. He doesn't see what's new about it. You're the safest of us all, he said.
Well, that would be
But what if they never got a hold of my intersections? Or what if they never got a hold of all your work in the early 50s? I mean, that's what I mean. That history in one hand is not cruel when you see what it's done for Christian, you see, but it's very cruel when you see what it's done for me.
Since it's perfectly clear that you're a magnificent artist in that role of being deep in thought, what I would like to see is how magnificent you are intruded upon. What do you think of that idea? Do you recall, isn't this true that once when we had one of those conversations we so I'm sure each of us so remembers walking through the streets of Lower East Side and the village and whatnot until late hours at night. I think I expressed once the idea that you had discovered a world, a musical world, because it was your music really that opened up everything, your piece, what was it called, the one for, I think the first one was for piano. Projection, yes. And you wrote it down at Monroe Street, and David Tudor and I were in the other room, and you left us, and you wrote this piece on graph, giving us this freedom of playing in those three ranges, high, middle, and low. And then we went in and played the piece, and it was then that the musical world changed. Now, not just the musical world outside of you, but the musical world inside of you, in this role that you speak of, deep in thought. Nevertheless, the thing I think I said to you once on that walk through the night is, now that you have opened up this world, let us see all the things that are in it. Now, among the things that are in that world is this situation of, granted, someone deep in thought, his being intruded upon.
You know, a lot of our friends from the 50s, the painters, are treated, as if they were in silent movies. Nobody's interested in them, hardly. They react to the situation in a way which is understandable, of course, but still, I can't really think that it was life that produced them, into this new situation. But it was the environment, and that life is something else. I think, in a sense, we're now getting our inspiration, our signals again from the environment, losing an understanding of life. Life also seems to be a silent movie, obsolete. Such a thing as life, such a thing as a life force, seems to almost have that ridiculous stance of someone, say, who we might think of as a utterly unnecessary, romantic type of artist.
I also don't think that those painters, if you mean specifically what we loosely call abstract expressionists.
Yes.
I think their situation is not bad. I think the work is beautiful. It exists. I think
It exists, yes, but not in our environment.
But I think it does. I just saw de Kooning the other day. Enjoyed it very much. Say a painter's work is not being given sufficient attention. Someone else is bound to notice this and stir things up so that it does get attention. Now, I suppose I have to qualify that by saying sooner or later. It will almost certainly happen when the painter dies, but one would like it to happen before. Or rather, the painter would like to have it happen before. Even the society would like it to happen before.
I think that if he could be reassured that it will happen after he dies, might be sufficient. I mean, if he's given this guarantee. I mean, we might bring something into the world. It is us that did it. The fact that it might be impermanent seems to be, I can't see its philosophical and sociological ramification. I would rather see it, in a sense, more in its religious element. I know that when I write a piece sometimes, I'm telling people we're not going to be here very long.